right, so welcome to chapter 7. If you want a longer version with a lot more detail, please take a look at the video at the very end of the lecture notes. Also, please read the lecture notes because the lecture notes are going to give you some answers, as is this video. So put it all together, you got something. Okay, that being the case, I'm going to try and make this as short and sweet and as to the point as I can. I'm not going to be playing the guitar. I'd love to, but I couldn't think of any ways of singing the songs towards this. So instead, you get my handy dandy little, whatever you would call these. Okay. All right. So denotation. Denotation, let's kind of like make it short, sweet, and simple. It's what it is. It's just like what it is. So the denotation of a hamburger would be a hot sandwich with meat, lettuce, tomato, and cheese. That's just that's the denotation of a hamburger, is like just the hamburger, like explaining what it is. It is a sandwich where there's some meats and some cheeses and some tomatoes. That's the denotation. Denotation of a cookie is going to be a baked good, depending on the cookie, chocolate chip cookie. The denotation of a chocolate chip cookie is a baked good where in which there are chocolate chips, right? Do you see how a denotation is just the thing? That's all it is. The denotation is the thing. So when you're talking about when we go to use the commercials, and I ask for the denotation of one of the commercials, if you say the denotation of a hamburger is a sandwich with beef and a hamburger with beef and lettuce and tomatoes and cheese. Well, actually, technically that's a cheeseburger, but you get the hint, right? That's the denotation of it. Denotation of a cookie is going to be a baked good with chocolate chips or whatever the case may be. Same thing with the denotation of, I don't know, mascara. It is a makeup product where you put it on your eyelashes for them to extend, right? That's the denotation of the thing. Okay, we get that. All right, it's the thing. Just say what the thing is. All right, so you have to kind of explain it. So the reason why I say that is because then when we go to talk about the connotation of something, the connotation, I gotta get my other little sticky poo here. The connotation of a word is the feeling we get from it. So when we talk about, I don't know, for me, say McDonald's, I have some nostalgia for McDonald's because my mom always seemed to go to McDonald's with little cheeseburgers. I loved it. I loved it. I can't now. I got sick once and I can't eat it again. So anyway, my original connotation for these little cheeseburgers was nostalgia. You can also have things like maybe the connotation is like this feeling of, ooh, a treat, you get a rare treat, or maybe the connotation is convenience or comfort. Maybe comfort is another word for it, right? So the connotation is the feeling. The denotation is what it actually is. Okay, you guys get that? Denotation, a hamburger is a sandwich with beef, tomato, lettuce, and cheese. Or that's a cheeseburger. Dang it. You know what I'm saying. And then the connotation of that would be the feeling, the nostalgia that we get. Nostalgia is sentimental longing for the past. All right, so maybe that's how you feel about it. Yeah. So anyway, connotation, denotation. Ta-da! All right. Oftentimes people might be using connotations consciously, like intentional. If they're using it intentionally, that's one thing. If they're not, that's unconscious. That's just the way in which they react to it. People have different connotations for different things. So while I might find a certain positive connotation for, cheeseburgers or hamburgers, other people might not. Other people might have had bad experiences. I will be honest. I got food poisoning from McDonald's about however many years ago. I don't eat it anymore. So while there's, some parts of it are a nostalgic connotation, I also have a negative connotation to the point where in which I don't eat it. Okay. We can have positive and negative connotations for commercials. They do that on purpose. Majority of the time, it is a positive connotation. What might that be? If you see somebody who is very skinny and pretty and they're drinking a diet Sprite, maybe it's a positive connotation. You're like, I want to look like that. I should drink that. Or maybe you have a negative connotation. It's like, bitch, that Sprite is not going to make me skinny. Stop trying to sell it for me, right? So Okay. Each person has their own connotation towards it. If you are going to be describing the commercials, you're going to have to explain why it is a connotation that is either positive or negative. What is the connotation? It's a positive connotation because I feel nostalgia, or I feel comfort, or I feel joy. Or it's a negative connotation because I feel fear and I feel a sense of anxiety, like maybe a commercial is showing, a house being burglarized, and that's a negative connotation. That fear actually makes you want to buy the security system, right? So even though it's a negative connotation, it's still a way in which it creates you to react in a way to do the next thing that they want you to do. So how are you seeing a certain level of connotation feeling in a commercial? All right. I say this because this is how we're going to be using it in class. Okay. There's other ways in which we use connotation. While we might not use the word fat, we might say um, uh, uh, plump or something. I don't know. These are all, you know what I mean? Like there's always these different words that we use whether we have a positive or a negative connotation, right? Maybe we are talking about ways in which connotations might have a positive or negative feel when you say things like, oh, it's low fat. You're like, oh, it's low fat. I want that, right? Or it's hormone free, ooh, or it's organic, ooh, right? We have a certain physical or emotional reaction to a sound, or I'm sorry, to a certain word. That's a reaction, right? That's the connotation. Okay, hope you're staying with me on this one. Okay, so take a look at some of the examples that I have in the reading. We are next going to talk about how we use the word reification. And oftentimes this word gets used not the way that we're using it in class. So how we in class are going to use reification is where in which we use how we're going to use it in commercials. We're just going to keep it simple. We're going to keep the reification as simple as possible. How we have kind of an emotional reaction to a name brand, let's be honest. So an example for this would be, you can't see it, but that's Hydrox. And that's an Oreo. And the reason why I bring this up is when I was in high school, I had a huge crush on this guy, and we all had some class party and we all brought food, right? It was one of those crock pots or something. I don't know what that would be, not crock pot, potluck. Anywho, long story short, I brought cookies, and instead of bringing Oreos, my mom bought Hydrox. And so I ended up bringing Hydrox to this, and this guy that I had a huge crush on made fun of me because apparently Hydrox were the quote unquote generic version of Oreos, and I was mortified, and I had an emotional feeling for the fact that I purchased the generic brand and I got made fun of because I didn't bring Oreos. Well, one time, I'm going to be honest with you, just so y'all know, Hydrox is the original Oreo. Hydrox was actually invented first. And the only reason why Oreo got famous is because after Hydrox became Hydrox, they tried to make another version of it using Hershey's chocolate. That is the difference between Oreos and Hydrox. Hydrox is actually the original. The original. I should have told that to that guy. I wouldn't do that now. But anyway, so that's the thing. We actually have a physical and emotional tie to name brands. And we are also, to be honest with you, kind of made to feel bad if we're not getting the name brand. That is reification, is when we make the name more important than the product. So another example of reification is I tell you, hey, can you go get me a Kleenex? I don't know what's in the box. I don't know what tissue it is. I want a tissue. That's all I'm asking for. But I am using the word Kleenex as a reification of a tissue. When I say Kleenex, majority of people know what that is. If I say, can you go get me a Puffs? Probably not gonna, maybe. Can you go get me a Puffs Plus? Because that one has lotion, right? Kleenex is very similar to when we say dumpster. Just so you know, dumpster is a name brand, not the product. The product would be a big, large garbage bin that we use. But the dumpster is actually the product, or I'm sorry, the name brand, right? So a dumpster, while in our heads, we think, oh, it's a big dumpster back there. It's like, no, that's the actual name brand. But really, you're looking for a large container wherein which we throw trash. Now you know. Okay. So this is how we understand reification. And I say this because when you're working with the commercials, reification is making the name brand more important than the product itself. And it's kind of a hard line. It's just the idea of, like when they say it's not just ice cream, it's dryers, right? Like we go, oh, it's not just ice cream, it's the name brand. Okay. If you go into a store and you see all the different ice creams and you see, I don't know, the Safeway brand versus, the Baskin Robbins brand, it's the same thing. There's like, you look at the ingredients, they're pretty much the same thing. In fact, you'll see oftentimes generic brands will say, compare ingredients to, Tylenol or something, generic brand of Tylenol, it'll say compare ingredients. So if I go to Safeway and I get the Safeway brand of ice cream and I look at the back of the Baskin Robbins, it's going to be the same thing. The difference is the name brand is what sells it. That's reification. So if I'm picking this, Safeway brand because of the price versus the name, right, is not necessarily the reification. I'm just picking it because of the price. But if I chose the, why am I choosing a name? I can't remember. Baskin Robbins. If I'm choosing Baskin Robbins over the Safeway, that's reification. Okay. When you're picking name brands, we're having an emotional reaction to name brands. That is the reification. We've done that to ourselves. We literally have been manipulated to think that these name brands are what we need, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. In fact, we do this often in many other cases. Examples would be, I'll go a little list here. So whether we're choosing a name brand of a product, sometimes titles of your job will do that too. So if I used to work at Lowe's, and if I had, and I also taught at the same time. So if I had to choose of the two name titles, like a paint store manager or, a teacher, I was always going to pick a teacher because that had a different reification to it, had a more powerful indication, even though the job at Lowe's actually paid more. So yeah, in case you're curious, retail pays a lot more than, teaching, just, heads up. But there's that name, Anyway, same thing, wearing designer clothes. I'll be honest with you, sometimes cheaper clothes fit me better than name brands. I've tried name brands, I'm like, they look dumpy. So, or even oftentimes we trick ourselves, and we've talked about superstitions before. It's kind of like if you go into certain cities and you go up floors, if there is going to be a 13th floor, you're never going to see it. They never list the 13th floor. You go past it to the 14th floor, right? But technically, it's actually still the 13th. They just don't name it the 13th floor because they don't want to put it in your brain because there's this thing about the 13th floor. I should research more about why 13 is such a funky number. Feel free to message me what you know about that. But it's the thing in our brain. It's the reification of going, oh shoot, 13 is such this bad number. I can't, right? Okay. Anywho, let's see what else. That's pretty much it. You can see some more different examples over here. Oftentimes we'll do the thing like, instead of saying cellophane, we'll say saran wrap. Saran wrap is not the product, it's the name brand. Same thing with Jell-O. Jell-O is not the product. Gelatin is the product. Jell-O is the name brand. Okay, and the same goes with Band-Aid. Oh, can I get a Band-Aid? Band-Aid is the product. Band-Aid is the name brand. Bandage is the product. See, I have been so ingrained in my brain that you'll notice I even struggle in having to say it because I'm like, oh, it's a Band-Aid. No, Band-Aid is the name brand. Bandage is the product. Can you get me a bandage? Can you get me a tissue? All right. They got me. Of course, I'm a 90s kid. I was always watching TV. So, anyway, you can take a look at some of these. I'm not going to be too particular about the rest of this. Majority of it is understanding how we utilize these words as compared to compare them in commercials and how we use them as examples. Okay. All right, let's talk about vague language. You're going to see oftentimes I will call you out on being vague because you'll say things, but you're not saying anything at all. I don't like vagarity. I hate vagueness. I need specifics. Always tell me the details. Drives me nuts. But some examples of being vague in commercials would be something like, oh, it helps support your, immune system, or it's got a 50% stronger cleaning power, or it leaves your hair noticeably shinier. None of these really mean anything. What does it mean, that 50% more cleaning power? What does that mean? 15% more as compared to what? Or help support immunity. I don't even, that's very vague. What does that really mean? And that's the goal, is to make it sound more than it is. Obviously, you can imagine that politicians will do this all the time. I'm here to help society, but I mean, what does that mean? Keep that in mind next time you vote. When you hear somebody say something, really know, what does that mean when you say you're going to do this thing? What are the specifics? What is your action plan? What's the thing that you say you're going to do this, but how? Okay. How does this thing clean 50% more? Like, how does it do that? Explain more to me. Show me. Okay. Ambiguity. There's a huge difference between being vague and ambiguous. Ambiguous means there's more than one way of interpreting what you just said. Vague is there's no interpretation because you didn't really see anything at all. Vague is saying something but not really saying anything at all. Ambiguity is saying something, but it could have multiple meanings. Ambiguity is a statement with more than one meaning. Okay, that's how we understand ambiguity. More than one meaning. So the reason why I repeat this over and over is oftentimes students assume they're the same thing. They are completely different. Vague is, again, it's not giving you a lot of information. It's like, what do you mean by that? Tell me more. Give specifics. I see what you're trying to say, but you're not really saying anything at all. Ambiguous means this could be one of two things. Which of these two things are you trying to say? I don't understand. That's the difference between ambiguity. So some examples would be, like an example of commercial would be like, show your commitment, give her a ring. Are you going to give me a call or are you going to give me a ring? Like, what are you going to give me? Because I want the ring. You can call me all day long, but it better come with a ring, right? See, there's a difference between the use of ring. Also, there's, commercials that like Mrs. Butterworth. Mrs. Butterworth, you're so good. Well, are you good as a person or are you delicious? I don't know Miss Butterworth personally, but I know she's delicious. Okay. Or where we use maybe one word that could also mean another thing. Like there was a commercial where they were saying jeans and jeans, where jeans like you wear, or jeans like your genes inside, like your DNA, right? I don't know why I winked when I said that. The goal was like puns. I love puns, and that was where that came from. So another example of that type of ambiguity would be, you've got this is just a random, just go with me on this one. You got a rabbit, and the rabbit's given her, his little girlfriend or her girlfriend a little ring, and he's like, here's a 10-carat ring, and then you see the ring and it's 10 carats, like actual eat it carrots, when they mean carrots as in the way in which we define a diamond. Did any of that make sense? Anyway, pun on pun. Ding, I love puns. So anyway, go ahead and take a look at some of those examples. I probably just blew it with my examples there. But anyway, you're going to see those in the commercials, or you might find that in some of the commercials that you use, where in which ambiguity could have more than one meaning. We could do one where it's like, oh, give Mark a hand, or is it give Mark a hand? Are we talking about one of the examples in the book is the teacher asks, can you name one of the elements from the periodic table of elements? And the student goes, well, I can't name the elements because they're already named. Right, the question seemed ambiguous, could have had more than one word. Another example would be Amelia Bedelia. If you would really like to understand ambiguity, please go take a look at an Amelia Bedelia book, and that will give you all of them, okay? Next, we're going to talk about double speak. All right, double speaking is language we use to lie while pretending like we're telling the truth. That's double speak. Like you're saying something that's a lie, but you're pretending that it is the truth. Okay, so some examples would be like, say they use the word, oh, single use, when in reality they mean disposable or trash, right? Single use products. Single use products such as chopsticks. I was trying to think of an example. It's the best I could come up with in the house. So chopsticks would be an example. They might kind of, say something like up to 100 hours of battery life. Well, when you say that, the lie is like it sounds like it's bigger than it really is. In reality, it's only going to reach this number in the most unrealistic power saving situation, right? Like the lie is it's up to, you could get up to 100. Well, most likely you're probably only going to get up to about 60% of that battery life versus the whole 100. The 100 would be using all kinds of like very particular conditions imaginable to get to that point. That's how you would consider, that's why it's double speak. You're saying one thing, but to get there, you really have to do something specific to get to that 100 hours of battery life, when in reality, you probably only get like 60 out of it with actual regular use versus conservative use. Does that make any sense? I hope so. So if you were to say vegetarian leather, I've never heard that, but an example could be vegetarian leather, which actually just means plastic or like pleather or vinyl, right? It's just not really leather. So vegetarian leather is just not actual leather, and leather is from a cow skin. Gotcha? Okay. All right. Examples would be if you're saying home style. Home style? Home style is just kind of a way of like, if you were at home, maybe you could cook it like this, but in reality, we actually baked it and we just, it's processed, and we put enough ingredients in there for it to last for months. So it's home style. Again, that's double speak. It is language used to lie about something while it's pretending to tell the truth. Okay, so home style would be lying to say it was made from home when in reality it was processed somewhere. Okay. All right, go ahead and take a look more at those. Again, to be honest with you, double speak is harmful. It's harmful. It's a lie being passed off as truth. So go ahead and take a look at the commercials in our KCA on ways in which you might see some double speak being used. Okay. Euphemism. Euphemism is where in which we use a softer way of saying something harsh, and I use harsh or taboo. Like not just another way of saying something. That's just another way of saying something. I'm talking about a euphemism where in which it's something that's like, oh, I can't believe they used that word. Like death, or sometimes things when we think very private, whether it's personal, sexual, something. Oftentimes euphemisms are used to say something else other than what we really mean to say. So oftentimes when you see in commercials, instead of saying toilet paper, they say bathroom tissue. Right? They're trying to like toilet paper. We know when we see toilet paper, when I was younger, I used to be embarrassed to go to the store and get toilet paper because I was afraid people would be like, oh, she uses the bathroom. Well, of course I do. Right? That's like, because we make things taboo as a society, toilet paper just happens to be one of them. So they say tissue paper. Or instead of saying constipated, they say occasional irregularity. Okay, so occasional irregularity, if I'm saying that right, would be constipated. So we don't always say the right word. So a euphemism would be, occasionally irregular, or sometimes they might say implements or undergarments when we mean to say panties. Oh God, I hate that word. I'd rather say undergarments or intimates, but that's because we have a connotation for some of these words that create a feeling, and maybe toilet paper makes you feel uncomfortable, but tissue paper doesn't, or bathroom tissue doesn't. Okay, or we might say, oh, that time of the month, or her special day when we're talking about someone's period, rather than just saying period or menstruation or whatever the word might be, right? Because some people or society creates a feeling towards a thing. That's what we call taboo. All right. Oftentimes, if you're feeling embarrassment over natural bodily things or natural ways of being, that's usually society manipulating you to feel a certain way, especially if it's natural. If you gotta poop, if you gotta, pee, if you got your period, or whatever the case may be, if you're feeling embarrassed about that, please don't, because it is natural. It is what happens. It is what our bodies do. Please don't let anyone make you feel bad about that, especially commercials. So you find in those commercials where they're trying to use euphemisms so that you can go, I don't need that. You just say it. Kind of like how they use blue liquid instead of red liquid when they show period blood in tampons and stuff, in pads. Okay. I'm going to step off my little box now, okay, and go back to the regular speech here. All right, spin is another form of double speak. It's another way of lying. It's another way of manipulating the negative into a positive or positive into a negative. It actually goes both ways. Examples of how we use this in commercials. Okay, so no, I don't remember if y'all remember how long ago this was, but Chipotle had this issue where a lot of people were getting food poisoning from their food. A lot of people were getting really sick. It was like E. coli or salmonella, something like that. I can't remember. And it really, Chipotle really, they lost sales. They really got crunched from this one. So you're going to notice that the way they spin their commercials now is they very much focus on the freshness and how it's cooked right in front of you and you just can't, nothing's frozen. Right? So they push very hard to show that their food is really fresh and good and healthy for you, okay? Because they're trying to spin that negative press into something positive. Burger King does the same thing. There's a commercial where in which the Burger King hamburger, they watch it over time, if they watch it rot. And the reason why they let this thing rot is so that they can show how fresh their food is, right? So it's turning a negative, which is rotten food, into a positive. Be like, well, it rots because it's so fresh. Okay. You might also see Subway used to have Jared, that Jared guy who claimed that he lost weight eating sandwiches, and they used him as a mascot. Old Jaredy Poo had some child porn that they found, and this brother got in trouble. And so now they're trying to, if you notice, pull away from what they used to have with the Jared stuff. So you can research all that, whatever. But now you'll see they spin it into something else. They show the athletes that do it majority of the time now. So away from the commoner, the common person who can just lose weight from eating Subway, they now use athletes, people who are healthy. I'm going to do Subway. You know, they're throwing the Subway down the field or whatever the case is. So anyway, that's ways in which they use spin. Okay. It's usually a deflection. People will say, oh, you've taken my words out of context as a way of spinning. They have the spin doctors who do that for politicians all the time. Politicians definitely spin stuff. There's so many things, but I don't even want to go down that road right now. Sick of politics. Anyway, oftentimes spin will take a sound bite, as we talk about sound bites, a little piece of something larger, and then they turn it, whether it's into the negative, usually when they pull a sound bite, in a spin context, they spin it to be negative. They do that very often in political campaigns or to prove something about somebody. They just pull it out and don't use the full thing. And that's how you can use spin in a negative way. So instead of just turning it positive, you can do either way. But jargon, just so you know, when we talk about terms and conditions is actually not gobbledygook. It is considered jargon because it's legalese, it's legal terms. Oftentimes jargon is when something that is specialized, whether it's a job or a sport or a hobby or a thing. It's the dialogue that people use within that little community that they understand because that's what they do every day. But the average person outside of that wouldn't really know. And they do that often in commercials with like trucks, and they'll say things like, oh, the torque power and the all-terrain max payload, where I'm like, brother, I don't know what any of that means. But if you're into trucks, you're like, I need to know what the payload is so that I can use it for my job, or I need to understand what the torque is for whatever reason. So if you're into trucks and you're looking for a particular truck, you're going to understand the jargon, or a car, or whatever the case may be. You know, MPGs, what's an MPG, miles per gallon? Some people care a lot about the MPGs. Some are like, I don't care, I just want the pretty car, or whatever the case may be. So the jargon matters in that case, especially when you're trying to sell something. L'Oreal or Clairol or whatever the case, whoever, any of these people, they're trying to sell the new hyaluronic acid, or there's always something. I never really know anymore. I should follow. I don't care. But anyway, hyaluronic acid. I'm like, what the hell is hyaluronic acid? But they say it in such a way that in the jargon it might work. They used to do it with toothpaste, and there was a name for bad breath. And they would use that scientific word for bad breath, halitosis, right? They'd be like, oh, and this gets rid of halitosis, or whatever the case may be. And people are like, oh, I didn't know I needed that. Not realizing they just mean bad breath. though halitosis is something much more serious than bad breath, so that's probably not the right word, but there's another word for it. Anyway, the point being that people use certain jargon to make it seem more scientific or more special or whatever the case may be to try and get you to purchase the product. Rarely do commercials use jargon for you to understand. Maybe in car places, maybe if you're into skincare, maybe you understand hyaluronic acid, or maybe you don't. Okay, they do the same with like taurine. I think taurine's what they use in energy drinks, and they'll have that label there like, ooh, taurine, that's gonna help me go do shit faster, right? Just makes my heart go faster. And then I say weird shit like I am right now. Hey. Okay, so anyway, oftentimes you'll see jargon where people are talking about football, and if you're not into football, you have no idea what people are saying. As a teacher, I might use words like scaffolding or, SLFs or SLOs or whatever the case may be. This is jargon on my end that I need to know because it's part of my job, but you don't need to know. You don't. It's not. What do you care? You just get me through the class. I'm trying to get through this. All right, so I recognize that sometimes I might use jargon. My apologies. Anyway, that's jargon. See how people might be using it in commercials. Gobbledygook. Okay, examples of gobbledygook are kind of hard because they're so big and they're so ridiculous. I put a couple examples here. Our unique, proven, and collaborative approach of combining doctoral level theoretical analytics, strategy, and world-class creation executive delivers groundbreaking, game-changing initiatives for ambitious brands. What was that? That was nothing. It said a whole bunch of nothingness. You will see that often. I will be honest with you. Sometimes the AI slop that I get in this class is stuff like that. And I'm like, I will rip my eyeballs out and you get a 0. So please don't use gobbledygook. Sometimes gobbledygook comes with things where you don't really know what to say. You're just going to say a bunch of stuff because it sounds interesting. That being the case, look for key words that include gobbledygook. And we've got innovative and game-changing and value-added and optimized and finessed or scalability or world-class. These words don't mean anything. This is a bunch of gobbledygook. They just use it to make something sound bigger or better than it is, when in reality, none of these words really mean anything. Think about that when you're looking for examples of gobbledygook in the commercials, okay? I'm trying to make it a little easier for you. Okay, weasel words are a little bit different. Weasel words, they're trying to use it to hedge their point, but the claims are very vague. So it's another way of being vague, weasel words. But there's specific ways in which weasel words are weasel words. So weasel words include, oh, it helps, blah, blah, or it's virtually, blah, blah, or up to, or likely. Or like is the word here. So an example would be Spick and Span spray helps remove 100% of virtually all tough stains. What does that mean, virtually? I don't understand what you're saying when you say virtually. It helps up to 50% of virtually all stains. That's some weasel words right there if I ever heard them. You can also think of Neutrogena helps. Neutrogena helps prevent acne. How does it help? What does that mean, helps? I don't understand. There's no definable, specific, like nothing tangible. It's just a word. But in our brain, we're like, oh, it helps. I'll take it. Will it help me? How will it help? We don't know. We didn't. It's just a weasel word. Same thing as spick and span is like a tornado in a bottle. How? Oh, I don't understand that, right? Undefinable. Same thing with it removes up to 50% of skin damage. What does that mean, up to 50%? What does up to mean? Okay, think about that when we come to weasel words and you're using examples. Look for those particular terms, okay? Last but not least, we are looking at romancing the product. Now, when it comes to romancing the product, please recognize that romancing the product is, and I love beer commercials. Beer commercials do this all the time. They make it seem like if you drink the beer, you will be fancy. If you go and, go to this hair salon, it's going to make you feel, I'm giving you hints here. If you go to this hair salon, it's going to make you feel like you're famous. So the commercial and the advertisement is romancing it to such a degree wherein which if you were to go use it, that's not going to happen. Like they got the diamonds with the black velvet in the background and the lighting. Oh, it's so pretty. And then you get it and you're like, I don't see the same effect going on right now. Okay. Or again, beer commercials. I did put an SNL commercial for Schmitz Gay. And if that is inappropriate, please somebody message me. I forget sometimes. I grew up in the 90s and I'm just very fluid about things, and I don't always know when something is inappropriate. So I may or may not delete the video later depending on if someone has complained about it. But that was always my image when I thought of romancing the product, making something seem more fancy and beautiful and exciting than it really is. Okay, so that's romancing the product. Think about when you're looking at the commercials where something, they might dress nice or make something look more beautiful than it really is versus the actual reality of the product itself. Okay, so anyway, there you go. Good luck, have fun, and 35 minutes. That's not terrible. All right, thank you.